I want Zach Wilson back next season. I want Zach back next season, but I want him back without LaFleur. Now, I say this because Robert Saleh, and this is a quote. Now, to be fair with Saleh, you don't know what he's thinking because, the way they've handled Zach Wilson, it's really been comical. Really, it's been distressing. It's been ugly. It's been a blueprint, really, on how not to develop a quarterback. Now, don't get me wrong, Zach's got to take a lot of the blame. But Saleh yesterday said, quote, "We will develop Zach Wilson through hell or high water." And Jet fans see that, and they're like, oh, my God, they're going to run it back with this guy. He's a mess. He's a scrub. His mechanics are out of whack. He's not good. You might be right. I want to run it back with Zach. There's no way. Now, caveated, LaFleur's got to go. No, under no circumstance can LaFleur and Zach Wilson work together next season. If the Jets find a veteran offensive coordinator, I want Zach Wilson back.
I think there is a interesting point in a head coach's tenure where it becomes about preservation of his job versus the relationships of his staff. And we know what we're alluding to. Guy has a great relationship with the LaFleur family, his brother, and everything else, and that's why he gave him the opportunity. He was supposed to be, insulated a little bit with Greg Knapp here, but unfortunately Greg Knapp passed away, and then he was thrust into the fire, and the flames, ate him up, especially because of the lack of development of Zach Wilson. But at some point, every coach gets forced to think about their job versus protecting their staff who is not getting the job done. And we know that that's been the case. Maybe not in totality, because I think Mike LaFleur has done some good things. We've seen his offense execute very well with guys not named Zach Wilson. So it's not fully on Mike LaFleur, but the lack of development of Zach Wilson can't be ignored. And so it's interesting. When I listen to Robert Saleh, I don't know what he's saying, because I know what he's doing because you see it, right? You bench Zach Wilson, you say Mike White's going to be our starter, and Zach Wilson comes back because Mike White is hurt, and then now the last game.
You forgot something. Flacco played early when Zach was out.
It's true.
So we didn't even think highly enough of Mike White to play him early because Joe Flacco started against the Ravens and the Browns. 100%
correct. So I know what you've done, but you're saying something that's completely different.
Yeah, he's saying a lot of different. The messaging it's all over the map.
The messaging is all over the place, and it's almost like he knows what he wants to do, but he doesn't know how to tell us how he's going to do it. And that puts his job in danger. And it's why you start hearing reports that Woody Johnson is kind of tired of him or frustrated with him. Not tired of him, frustrated with him.
Yes.
And I can see why. If I was the owner of the Jets, I would see why you're frustrated with your head coach right now.
I get that. Hey, listen, I'll take it a step further. And to say this 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, really before he got hurt in the Bills game, it would seem unfathomable. But at this point, I want Zach Wilson back before I want Mike White back.
I would agree with that.
I think a lot of people wouldn't, though.
But I think the upside is there for Zach if he gets taught the right way. But, I mean, I think what baffles the mind is that how did you miss this with Zach? Like, how did you miss the fundamental flaws? And if they weren't that egregious at BYU, why are they so bad now?
That's the question that really will determine what happens with this franchise moving forward.
I think
it's the money question.
It is the money question.
I don't know.
So where did it go wrong? And if you can't identify where it went wrong, how are you going to fix it? So it creates this same old Jets mentality again. Like, it puts you back into that, this Jets team, as good as they are, they can't get out of their own way. And it's unfair to what, the early part of the season, but I look at this Jets year and what's your takeaway? Like, as a Jet fan, what is your biggest takeaway?
Incredible disappointment.
Exactly.
That's mine.
But that's what I mean. After all of the promise, like all of the good stuff that you thought about, that you talked about for the first 2 months of the season, when it's all said and done, Week 18 is going to conclude next week. And we're going to look back at this Jet season and say, what? Oh, that's something to build on? Or, God, that sucked. You're going to say that sucked. And that's kind of what we've always said for the Jets for the last decade or so.
Well, more than that. I mean, much more than that. I know what you mean.
It becomes the same old Jets again.
I understand that, and I want to break through that ceiling.
Yeah,
and you definitely don't crack through that ceiling by bringing back an offensive coordinator who clearly does not work well with Zach. Now, if you tell me that the Jets quietly are plotting a divorce from Zach, and they think that LaFleur, and there is some evidence, to be fair to LaFleur, that whatever he does works better with others than Zach, I can at least, on an intellectual level, understand what they're doing. But the problem with that is you then don't go to the podium and say, we're going to develop Zach Wilson through hell or high water. That is probably the most...
Unless he's lying to us.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Aside from the receipts comment, I think that's the strongest take that Robert Saleh's had since the day he took over this team. Through hell or high water, there's nothing to interpret there. There's nothing nebulous about that. Well, what does he really kind of mean? It means that whether we're drowning or we're burning and we're on fire, we're going to go to hell to get this guy right. That's what it means. Unless you lied to us.
I want Zach back for a different reason than you do, because I think you want him developed. And look, I'd love to see a redemption story. I really would. It'd be fun to see, he's figured out the mechanical flaws. He now gets it. He gets how, the fundamentals of a drop back are married to what's happening in the route right downfield. I would love to see that happen.
Okay.
But I also kind of would enjoy it morbidly, because I wish the Jets success, but the morbid deconstruction of you know what I mean? Like it's almost as interesting to see the good and the bad, right? Like if he's just kind of average, what are we doing? Like you don't have a solution. You don't have a mandate to get rid of him. It's just kind of like he's just like I kind of don't want that. So in a way, I'm interested to see Zach back, to see if he redeems himself and becomes the star that everybody expected him to be, or he just really keeps crashing and burning.
877-337-6666 is our number. Tiki and Tierney here on the Fan. Nick's got to win. That streak is over. We'll squeeze that in a little later. As always, we're inside of our Town Fair Tire studio. Our friends at Town Fair remind you that you always get the guaranteed lowest price on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. I mean, listen, sometimes you've got to really bend over backwards and do, real complex navigations of the body to find something that will give you some sort of confidence that it can change. And then other times, it's staring you right in the face. Do I need to remind every Jet fan that has already thrown Zach in the pile of rubble that Daniel Jones in the same stadium under the same dire circumstances? Daniel Jones had, three coaches? The last three coaches the Giants have had.
Yeah, three head coaches,
right?
Yeah, and 4 offensive coordinators.
Yep, and outside of a revolving, offensive line and no weaponry and all the other circumstances that he was able to will himself through. Now, to be fair, I'm not saying it's a perfect comparison. Jones played a lot more college football, so he's more refined in that sense. He's bigger.
Yep.
He places the ball better. There are things, I think, just inherently that Daniel Jones does better than Zach Wilson. Well, pretty much everything, except maybe the off-platform stuff, which I'm kind of getting tired of hearing. But I don't think that you look at Zach now and say, and really, well, you can say it. Of course you can. But I don't know that you can fully believe that there's nothing there. I don't know how you come to that deduction already. I know that we're all wired to yell and scream and to desperately get away from this hellhole that the Jets have dragged us through and into for my entire life. You've heard Beningo ranting forever on the stage. She's not wrong, but you know what? Geno Smith. I know that Saleh talked about this. Geno looks pretty good. I thought he kind of maybe overstated what Sam Darnold's been doing with Carolina, but still, the fact remains that there can be second acts in the same uniform. And I'm intrigued enough to see if Zach can do it with a coordinator who is more veteran and just knows the game better. LaFleur was awful for Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
He was. And Wilson was awful for him.
It's painfully obvious. And it's not really anybody's fault, because I think if there was say the Jets had a veteran quarterback that was already here that you trusted, that could learn a new system, new coach comes in, new coordinator comes in, Mike LaFleur might be getting lauded for being one of the best assistants in football, right? But his task was to develop a young quarterback, and he just doesn't have the skill set to do it. At least he hasn't shown that he has a skill set to do it.
All right, this should be interesting. 877-337-6666. Jimmy's in Manhattan, first up on the Fan, Tiki and Tierney show. Jim, what's cooking, buddy?
Yeah, how you doing, guys?
All right,
What's up, Jim?
All right, listen, I'm calling to say bring back Zach Wilson.
Bring back Zach. Bring back Zach.
Yeah, bring back Adam Gase. Bring back the Wilpons as Mets owners.
Bring them all back.
And bring back the Wilpons and bring back de Blasio as mayor.
Oh, well, that we don't want. That's the one thing we can't allow.
I put them all in the same pot. I think Daniel Jones showed a lot more skill sets early in his career. He's bigger, he's faster, he's stronger, has a strong arm. You could see the potential there.
That's a great point. I mean, those early games, some of those early, the turnovers were always kind of peeking around that corner, but some of those early games, you're like, man, this kid could be really good. He's bigger, more athletic than Eli.
Well, that's true.
Same personality.
Different frame than Zach, for sure.
Carried himself, in a great way, Daniel Jones did.
Yep.
So you could kind of see what has evolved develop as a rookie. Like, you knew it kind of as a rookie that he could be. I mean, hell, he had a nickname as a rookie. He was Danny Dimes. Think about that. As a rookie, he was. So we shouldn't be surprised that once the Giants' coaching situation stabilized, that Daniel Jones actually became a player.
Well, you can. I think you could see how much the coaching helps, because you look at the 2 touchdowns he threw last weekend. One of them, he felt pressure in the pocket. He ran to his right. He set himself, found a receiver, and zipped it in there.
Yep.
And you could see it was very organized and sharp, like he was coached to do that.
Yeah, it was.
And
He was
that's
decisive.
really the coaching made a big difference for him.
Yeah, he's been decisive. Like, you see it whenever he drops back and the ball comes out on time, right on target. Like, he's coached to make quick decisions. And in the NFL, if you elongate a decision, bad things are going to happen unless you're Pat Mahomes. And by the way, Pat Mahomes isn't even doing that anymore, right? That whole, let me scramble around for 10 seconds and find Tyreek Hill 40 yards downfield on a prayer that only Tyreek Hill could get back to and make a big play out of. He's not doing that anymore. Getting the ball out of his hands. And he evolved into a better player, even though he was exciting as hell as a second-year player when he won the MVP.
All right, 877-337-6666. That's fine. Call me a sucker. Call me a masochist. Call me whatever you want. I'm a little intrigued. I got to be honest with you, because this is kind of ignored as well. I'm kind of intrigued to see what Zach can be with a year without interruption. And this seems like excuses, and that's fine. He got hurt first preseason game. Gets dumped into middle of a season. If you think it's easy, it's not. With a team that suddenly was a little more ready than he was and had shown some more progress than maybe we all thought, for sure. So I don't think it was easy. I think the Jets complicated it. I think Zach complicated it. I know that I'm probably just going to torture myself with this. I'm not ready to give up on the kid. I'm not. 877-337-6666. But LaFleur with Zach, that I'm ready to give up on. All right.